Hi everyone, and welcome to our K-6 / P-6 APAC user group for Canvas. And thanks everyone who's shown up today and participating in the user group. Hopefully we get a lot out of it and we're able to share a lot of really great, interesting information with each other. And we've got a number of people who are going to be sharing things, but we're also going to have time to be able to share with each other, just in general. But we also have Ruth Thornton, who is product manager for the APAC region. So thanks, Ruth, for coming to our user group, and we'll hear from her a little bit later as well. But this is the agenda. Essentially, we've got a couple of people who have dived in already on Canvas for Elementary. I know the last user group that we had, there weren't a whole lot of people who'd actually started using it yet because it was fairly fresh in production. And so, yeah, we heard from the lovely Jody, who was able to show us a bunch of things, but I thought it'd be really great now that we've got some people with a couple of Ks under their belt using Canvas for Elementary to, well, it wasn't just my idea, it was a bunch of people on our K-6 committee. I thought it'd be a great idea to be able to share that. So we've got Kylie and Paul, who are graciously going to share what they're up to in that space. And then we'll hear from Ruth, and we'll have a bit of a chat about the Canvas community and how you can keep up to speed with a lot of the updates that are happening in Canvas, and have a bit of a discussion around sharing content. How do you share content amongst yourselves within your schools? And any other Q&A or just discussion, anything else that people would like to discuss, we'll have some time for that, hopefully, at the end. If not, then hopefully we can spend a bit more time on that on the next one. But I guess we may as well dive in and have a bit of a gander at some cool stuff that Kerry and Barker are up to. Who'd like to go first? Paul or Kylie?
Kylie, I vote. See, I got in really quick there, didn't I? No, I don't mind. I'm having you on.
I can go first. Is it okay if I share my screen?
You can go for it.
All right. I'm not a Zoom user, so please bear with me as I try and figure this out. All right. Are we good to go? Perfect. Fantastic. All right. Oh, hang on. There we go. All right. So, hi everyone. I'm Kylie. I have a new title this year, which is Head of Kerry Digital Learning. I was once upon a time an e-learning coordinator. I then fitted into a role as Head of Innovation. And finally this year, you know, just for a bit of change, landed on a new title. Doesn't mean I do anything different, but titles at Kerry are quite important. So I embrace this one for another year and see where I end up in the next year or so. I just wanted to give you a brief history of Kerry and where we are at. So we are based in Melbourne. We're an independent co-educational school. We're non-selective entry. We have devices. All of our students have devices. So we have one-to-one iPads from prep to grade 6. Soon to be a laptop device in year 5 and 6. And in year 7, it's a HP laptop, and in year 10 the students get a choice of either a HP or a Mac. So just to give our ICT department a bit of a headache, we are a multi-platform school, and we have about 2,600 students, although I did just see some figures before which said that we have over 5,000 devices that need to be managed, so maybe we're a little bit bigger than that. We started using Canvas back in 2020 in our middle school and senior school, or 2019 in our junior school. And I guess a few things to note about our setup. So we have 2 junior campuses, so our Kew and our Don Vale campus, and we've set them up as sub-accounts as well as the middle school and senior school sub-accounts. We run blueprints at each year level. So in our junior school, you know, there's a prep blueprint for each of the classes: English, maths, integrated studies, LOTE, library, music and PE, and I think and art as well. Parents are always observers, so they're able to access anything that the student can access. We also run 2 different systems, but very similar. Timely feedback in our junior school, or continuous reporting up in our middle school and senior school, and we extract those results to Synergetic to be able to sometimes print those depending on the task, etc., out to parents. And we also use Canvas for a whole range of other things besides just our general academic classes, our music, summer, winter sports, etc. So that's where we are at. So we did start with normal Canvas, is that what I call it? Just normal Canvas. And we moved to Canvas for elementary for a number of reasons. We, I guess, implemented it not knowing, back in 2019, not knowing much about Canvas and how to set it up. And after 2 years of online learning, we felt that we had courses that were extremely full of stuff that was probably relevant while we were learning from home, but not so relevant when we were back in the classroom. So we used it as a really good excuse to clean out our courses, and we started afresh. So we've parked all our blueprints that we'd used previously, and we're now, in 2022, we've started with fresh new courses. So starting with fresh new courses gave us an ideal opportunity to revise and rewrite our Canvas guidelines. And it is a document that is about 40 pages long, but basically tells teachers exactly what they can and cannot do within Canvas, what things go on front pages, how an announcement should be set out, how their assignments, when they're added to the Grade Centre, how they should be named, how files should be filed, etc. And we find that even though it might seem like we're being very prescriptive in our use of Canvas across our school, that our teachers really appreciate those guidelines. It doesn't mean that there is no room for flexibility and creativity, and we definitely encourage that. We also implemented Canvas not really thinking about its use on the iPad and within both the app and an iOS operating system. So when we've revised and moved to Canvas for elementary, we've really taken note of those views and what the students can see, and what things take up valuable real estate on those pages. And of course, we're looking for, that digital experience that reflects what happens in the classroom. And we found that Canvas for elementary was what we wanted to do in that space. So I'm just going to step you through a few things that we love about Canvas for elementary, and then just a few challenges, and then I will pass over to Paul. So the first thing that our teachers love is the announcements. I say our teachers, probably our teachers and our parents, that they do fit on the front page, and that they're there all the time, and that you can easily cycle back through them, and that they're sort of, front and center when you land. They're not hidden behind another button. We also really like the ability for our tiles here to be easy to read subjects rather than courses. And we sort of have really worked on the fact that those notifications are correct too. And behind that, I guess, goes a lot of work with teaching teachers when they create an assignment and they have a due date, to making sure that it's, the students are submitting things so that it doesn't appear like a jumble here, which some of our middle school and senior school classes look like, where they've got missing things and the parents are asking questions, did they not complete that specific task? The other thing that we really like is that simplified pages. And we had a very heated discussion with one of our grade 6 teachers who really liked the course structure down the side with all of the tabs. And he basically was insisting that I bring that back into Canvas. But we talked through the fact that we really wanted our Canvas experience for our littlest learners to be a learning journey. And we didn't want them just clicking into pages or files or tasks, but we wanted them to be built out in modules, and we wanted to make sure that there was a flow of learning. So not having the ability for them to see those tabs really means the teachers need to think about what goes behind these buttons. We also find that because of our timely feedback, the marks section in Canvas for Elementary is perfect for our needs. Sometimes our feedback here got a little lost within Canvas's marks section or feedback loop for parents and teachers, but we found by clicking on them within each of the individual subjects, the parents really appreciate being able to get to them nice and easy. And while I couldn't find an exact example when I was looking, I've taken this one from the Canvas guidelines online. Our teachers also really appreciate the fact that students can annotate. And I know that this is not specific to Canvas for Elementary, but it's one thing that sort of seemed to be a bit more highlighted for the little kids when we were using this over, particularly in grade 5 and 6, and particularly, even though this is a maths example, our English teachers really appreciate, or our within English, those teachers really appreciate the ability for students to be able to mark up a piece of work and submit that. So what are our challenges? Our first challenge came when there was no big blue button. We use big blue button for conferences. There was no big button tab, and so we had to again build out a specific button image with the URL behind it to show students that. And we've learned that the hard way. You know, when we landed at the start of the term, we were thinking we were going to be clear sailing, but then of course we had a number of students who were in isolation or did have COVID. So we needed to find a quick solution to that. So that was one thing that we came across quite suddenly. There was also needing for us to rethink where our general content went. So things that we usually give out to parents at the start of the year, and that might be, you know, helping the child with their homework, or giving them sort of, you know, spelling words, etc., as well as the students' weekly homework. Because there wasn't much to build out in the home course, we really needed to think about where that general content went. And for us, it's about not just where it goes in grade 5, but where it goes prep to grade 5. So we have made our integrated subjects the house of all of the most important things that parents and students need to be able to get to. And as I mentioned before, I had the one teacher who's pretty much certain that we should flip back to the normal institution of Canvas and not use Canvas for Elementary. And so change is, of course, always a challenge. And I guess we always go with the approach of trying to do as much for our teachers as we possibly can, and then asking them or helping them to come along for the journey. So the other probably things that have most impact on us is that Canvas and Parent app. So again, for the students that are using it on the iPad, sometimes find that it's not as easy to access as it is when you're using a general web browser. And we really need our parents to be able to see all of that feedback. So they look at the task, they look at the rubric, and they look at the feedback that has been given by the teacher. And that's not available in the Parent app. So we actually have our parents sign into the Canvas app. They have their own login because they're an observer. They log into the Canvas app, Canvas student app, with their parent credentials. But it does mean that those parents who have more than 2 children can't see all of the courses on the one page. So there are just some slight things that we didn't really anticipate would be issues, but things that have come up along the way. And that is Canvas for Elementary at Canvas at Kerry. What are we, week 10 weeks in using the program. And only one teacher, I think, would have us turn back, but he's very insistent that we should go back to general Canvas.
Nice. All right, that's fantastic. I suppose we could switch to Paul now, but before we do, does anyone have any questions for Kylie?
Yeah. Hey, Kylie, Chris here from Santa Sophia, up in Sydney. I saw on one of your pages, it was the maths one. So that there was like a maths worksheet that's set up for iPad, right?
It is, yeah.
Okay, brilliant. The other one you mentioned about the onboarding or the documentation, which is essentially the style guide that the teachers follow. Mm-hmm. Typically at Kerry, there it is.
Yeah.
At Kerry, what does it look like when you onboard your staff? So you got a staff member from a different, system, or you're using Canvas Elementary. What have you found to be the most successful strategies for, supporting staff in the use of Canvas Elementary?
Yeah, great question. I guess that is probably the same process we use across the school, regardless of the program. So any new staff member to Kerry at the start of each term attends during the holidays, so before general staff come back, a day of orientation. So the first sort of day is with the HR department, learning about the Kerry policies, etc. And then I get them from lunchtime onwards, and we talk about a general, I guess even ICT, they get their laptops. So I remind them that they must keep their laptops in their bag. I tell them about our, e-safety, child safety, etc. And then we spend the afternoon looking at Canvas and working through, I'm very conscious of the fact that they've been overloaded with information, but we point out the really important things that they need to know day one of their classes. And then from there, on a Monday afternoon, we provide professional support for those staff, and they can, we provide during term one, it's always about Canvas. And then when we move into term two, we sort of bring in other pieces of technology. So between a 4 to 5 time slot, we run regular PD, as well as we have 3 sessions. I've got a team of people, so they're like, we call them digital coaches. And they are available at certain times during the day, and they sit with staff when they have their spare periods at lunchtime and work through each of those things. And finally, we recreated our Canvas guidelines in Canvas itself. So we actually have a course that will show you each of the points in the Canvas guidelines and how to do it. So if, for example, if I look at the Canvas guidelines, it talks about the blueprints and it talks about who creates them, but it also then goes on to talk about, our announcements are sent out once a week, what they should look like. Then our online Canvas course actually shows you how to do that. So you can copy and paste what's written there into your own course.
Brilliant. Do you, and when staff engage with the course, I guess our context is we've got 1,000 new students who started our school this year, 75 new staff because we've come into this new building.
Yeah.
And so there was some onboarding courses, but what we're finding is it's that information overload. We weren't able to have our staff on site last year because they've come from different schools. And so what does it look like with I love the idea of the digital coaches and that additional face-to-face PL support. Did you get much of a bite from your online course? When a person comes and has a conference with the digital coach, we'll always direct them back to that course. Yeah.
And I think the other thing is we send out sort of a weekly newsletter, and in that weekly newsletter, we try and give them 1 or 2 tips. So it might simply be, have you seen that you can arrange your grade center like this? And so again, it's not, here is Canvas, it has everything in it. And as I was just saying to Paul earlier today, there were things that I even found out today that he had not told me. So it's just
not
about
intentional.
drip feeding that information to the staff when it's relevant too. As we move now, day one, reporting is kind of not important, right? It's about your classroom, it's developing that culture, it's about putting photos into your Canvas site. Whereas now, as we I'm conscious we're about to go on the 2-week holiday, there will be staff who will be marking. So I'm drip feeding out those tips that will make their marking process over the holidays a bit easier.
Brilliant. Thanks so much.
No worries.
Cool. Any other questions? I think, Paul, you're up. Can't put it off anymore. You're muted.
I'm all over it. Yeah, it's not a Zoom user either, we're Teams. Look, thank you. Well done, Kylie. Pretty much what Kylie said, just substitute Barker in for Kerry and we're done. Thanks. That's good. No. Okay, we're like that as well. Bit of a background on us. Again, we're a pre-K to 12 school in Sydney, an independent school. We've just gone co-ed. We were one of the older traditional boys' schools, and there's lots of old Barker boys turning over in their graves now because we're now fully co-ed, which is great. So we're about 2,700 students as well, pretty big. We are Canvas unit users from year 3 to 12. We use Seesaw for our little ones, but this year I've implemented Canvas down in prep as well for progressive reporting, which I'll tell you a bit more about as we go. So I'll endeavour to share screens as well. I'm sorry, I'm not as organised as Kylie. I don't have a presentation, so we're just going to go live and hope it all works. Best way to present, isn't it? This is a typical desktop for one of our junior school students. We are also one-to-one across the board, iPads from pre-K to 6, Surface cutting board things. I'm an Apple person. Surface, Microsoft Surfaces 7 to 9, and then with BYOD in 10 to 12, and that tends to be about probably 75% Mac. But one of the big things we're pushing here at Barker is digital ink. We're very much about using the devices with a digital stylus. All our teachers use OneNote as well. That's part of our group of core apps that we use. So they're connected to a whiteboard. They're writing on OneNote. They're saving that work straight away, and the kids are contributing on OneNote as well. And it's working really, really well for us. So we're changing our BYOD in the senior school to probably to become for a device that will support digital ink. It's something we're really quite interested in. Canvas, we've been users since probably 2017, 2018 by the time we rolled it out, and Paul's been with us the whole way. Sorry, Paul. But for a while there, we were also blueprint courses. But when we were starting to look at the structure and the way we were doing things, we've decided to move back to cohort. So we're cohort across the board now. So we have one course per subject, and I'll talk more from a junior school perspective. So we have one course for each grade.
So
within that
for those who don't know what it's talking about, it's talking about having multiple sections in a single Canvas course.
Yeah. It took me a long time to work out what a section was when I first started looking at Canvas, but basically it's the classes. So we've got 7 year 5 classes. So each section represents a class. So if they want to, the teachers can distribute things to them, to their own class individually by just selecting that section. In there, I was one of the earlier consultants on the elementary interface, which was quite exciting. And probably, when was that, Paul? Last year, or the year before? I can't remember.
Yeah, time flies. About 15 months ago, something like that. Yeah,
but when it came out, I didn't actually go to it for quite some time. We really liked the way we were using it. But I mentioned before that we went down the path of progressive reporting or continuous reporting. So we're getting away from that main report at the end of the semester, which basically shuts the school down for 4 weeks while the teachers all panic over their comments, to this progressive reporting model where we're continuously reporting on the students. So we have what we call checkpoints, 3 to 4 times per semester. The parents are notified when they come up. We give really good feedback, surprise to the learner rather than to the parent. And the parents are on that journey with us. So it's a really wonderful thing. I'm sure a lot of us are doing it these days, but think more about it. Our SMS, our student management system, is Engage, and unfortunately, Engage doesn't cope well with progressive reporting and getting data across. So, in my last year, I had basically one course per year group for the core subjects, and inside there we had our inquiry units because we're a PYP school. We had literacy and numeracy. It was all built into the one course, but Engage wasn't able to pick up the marks and separate them out, which was just great. We've had all sorts of fun coding that transfer of grades and marks across. So what I had to do to make it work this year was basically split Canvas into a whole lot of courses. So as you can see here, there's a homeroom course, an inquiry course, which is our PYP. Then we go off into our specialists. We've got a separate literacy and a separate numeracy course. So it was starting to look really, really messy for our kids and the experience they were having on their iPads. And I went, oh, hang on a minute. I remember something about the elementary interface. So I had a good chat to Paul about it and basically turned it on this year. And the navigation's just so nice for our little kids. You can see down on this one here that even the red global menu is changed to what you would normally see. The desktop's now gone to a home button, which takes them back to their landing page. What I've done as well is I've created a homeroom course for each year. So they land in that homeroom course, and then inside that is our separate subjects. I'll just jump into a couple of these to show you how they work. The home course is basically where all our homework is linked. This button will link off to the current week's homework, and this is for our junior school guys. So they get the table of things that they need to do, any submissions or what have you, goes through Canvas. We also link what we call our learner agency, which is our approach to learning, basically an effort grade off this homeroom course as well. So 3 times a semester, the students jump in here and they do a self-reflection survey, which is a mark survey and a Canvas quizzes. And then the teachers go and mark on a rubric for that as well. So it gives that feedback to their effort over whatever subject they're in. So we link that sort of thing off the homeroom course. Again, the announcements are great. They pop right up there at the front. I really like the reduced menu. I don't feel sorry for your teacher, Kylie. Suck it up, would be my response, because I'm not very nice. I just like the way what it's done is it's forced our teachers to be a lot more correct about the way they structure their courses up. Like they need to have their modules, like this one probably isn't a good example, but they need to have their modules properly structured underneath. If we jump into our inquiry course, for example, so you can see each of the transdisciplinary themes and PYP there. So they've got to get the structure correct in there, which is really nice. It just makes our courses work a lot better and look a lot better. The interesting one is when you do an assignment as well. I know you can get to it through the marks menu, but again, it's forcing them now to put their any assignments under the module as well. And it keeps that easy navigation on the pages for the students with the next and button there. So I really like it. The other one I like about it too is the resources. We use quite a few LTIs. And as you can see, there's 2 on the end there that got installed in the high school, and they automatically populate the white course menu, and it's far too many options down the side. So I actually get in and clean this up and refine it across the junior school. So we've only got the resources under here, or the LTIs that we use in our area. So again, it cleans up those courses so much better. Just as an aside, if you haven't got onto Canva for Education yet, do it tomorrow. Absolutely amazing. That's Canva. Sorry, Paul. Just put your hand up over the S on your background for a sec. Yeah, okay. Fantastic. Really, really good. So I'm really liking the interface. Kylie, I'm a bit jealous of your images that you've got on your tiles. I left that up to my teachers, and you can see some of them have got into it and they've jumped in and put some really nice pictures up. So it pulls up all your previous content. So this was the home page for the original course, and it just pops it in there, and then all these links are live off to the subject material. And again, the other one I think which works particularly well for us, like Kylie said, is the marks, particularly for our progressive reporting, because our parents are jumping in on this and they're seeing the checkpoint. We name it particularly for progressive reporting, so they know what to look for. We've had parent information evenings in here, and they can click in here and burrow down to the course. I do agree with what Kylie said about the parent app. It is a little confusing. On our portal, we have a link here for parents. And this is a staff one, so it looks a little bit different for parents, but they've got a link there to the web version of Canvas, and they jump straight into the elementary view going off that on the web. So that works quite well for us. We're fairly happy with that and the structure that it's doing in there. So yeah, really happy with the way that it's working. I did have some concerns originally about how well it would work on the iPad, but since turning it on and doing lots of testing before we started the year, I was really quite happy with the interface and the way that it's working. There's a few little hiccups on it, and I'm sort of considering about going to maybe the web version for our students as well. I mentioned that we use Seesaw for our preps, but this year I've pushed them across to Canvas as well, mainly for progressive reporting. So they're still doing their progressive reporting checkpoints in Seesaw and giving their feedback there. But we also have courses set up for them where they just have the task with a rubric on it. Seesaw is wonderful as a digital portfolio, but it's an enclosed tool. You can't get data out of it unless you feel like uploading several hundred CSVs, which I don't. So I was really keen to push our preppies into Canvas just to be able to get that data out. So we run syncs. We have a couple of programmers on site who've written scripts that look for the data in Canvas and then push it across to Engage. to populate our transcript, academic transcript, which we create at the end of each semester. So that's working really, really well for us. And our year 2 teachers, much to my delight this year, said, "Oh, can you please come and help us set up our Canvas course, because we want to put our video content up in it, so we're not sharing emails around." I don't like them to use video content in OneNote because it tends to slow the synchronization down. Something chronic can jam it up. And Canvas, as part of our grouping of apps, is our digital textbook. Is mainly what we call it, in the way that we push it in our professional development. So we like to have that shared content sitting in Canvas. So my year 2s are now setting up their courses. They've got their video content up in a Canvas page. They've got their PowerPoints, and then they're using Seesaw for what it does really well, which is the digital portfolio, the parent connection. Just going off, I think, the question that Kylie got at the end there about professional learning, we do a similar sort of thing. We have time with our new staff where we take them through all our systems, but we do run full-time professional learning courses. So I just need to get out of the student view here. For our staff, when a new staff member comes on, there's a mandatory training course they have to do by the end of probation. I'm just waiting for the day that someone doesn't, because I'm not quite sure how we're going to deal with that, but I haven't got there yet. So we've got these full courses in here that the staff have to go through, and it's markers done. I use a Credible now in the back end that issues certificates when they finish. That goes to our HR department, so it gets put on their record. And basically, we take them through, in the mandatory training course, we'll take them through all of our tools. So we'll talk about blended learning, which is one of our frameworks here. We'll talk about PYP. We'll go through a brief overview on Canvas, OneNote, and Teams that we use. And we talk a bit about progressive reporting. We also run full courses on each of these things in the back end in our professional learning courses. We're lucky enough to be a registered school with NESA. When NESA aren't changing their rules about how they do stuff with courses. So we can apply mandatory training hours to all of our courses. So teachers register and they'll get 4 to 15 hours or whatever, depending on the course, which goes towards their ETAMS accreditation, which is a New South Wales thing. So look, that's where we're at with it. Again, I'm pretty happy with the structure of elementary. It's working really well for us in our situation, particularly with that progressive reporting. Helps the structure of the courses be a lot more refined and cleaner. So it's pushing our teachers to do that. So, and works really well with their progressive reporting model. So yep, it's working fantastically for us. Thanks.
Fantastic. Thanks, Paul. Does anyone have any questions for Paul?
Paul,
Hey,
can
Paul.
I quickly?
Yeah, we've got Christopher again, and we've got Dennis, and was that Wendy as well?
Yeah, thanks, Paul.
Go, Wendy.
Hey, Wendy.
Shall I go?
Yeah, ladies first, go for it.
Thanks, Paul. Hey, Paul, nice to see you. Just
You too.
just want to check. They're using this on the iPad, you said?
Yes,
Students,
they are.
yeah. How do they go about? Can they upload all the things from apps like Pages and things like that? So we've obviously. Sorry, go.
Yeah, they can. Yeah, it's just a straight submission through. Depending on the app, some of them you submit from within the app. When you go to share the content, Canvas student comes up as an option. They tap on that, they put the course in, they put the task in and submit. We do a lot of video work, and that's all done through Studio on the iPads. So there's the Studio submission option in there. So yeah, it's working really well.
Great. And just marking through SpeedGrader as far as annotations or anything like that, is that possible?
Yeah, all of our teachers have 12.9 inch iPad Pros with the Apple Pencil. It works pretty well. Some of the, when you're trying to annotate on the document on the iPad, causes some issues. Someone came to me today and said, I keep trying to write on the document, the whole document moves. So that annotation within the document isn't probably fantastic experience on the iPad for them. A lot of our focus is rubrics. So we put as much feedback in the rubric that we can. We have specific outcomes that we built for our progressive reporting that have to be in there, and that feeds the academic transcript. But then I encourage the teachers to put other outcomes in there as well that really reflect on the tasks the students are trying to do. So they're doing probably less annotation on the document and more rubric and comment because that's the kind of feedback that we're pushing with our stuff.
Great. Thanks, Paul.
Yeah, pleasure.
Hey, Paul, I wanted to ask, you've been mentioning progressive reporting. And so from what I understood, the students are still using Seesaw. However, you've got rubrics set up in Canvas to allow the teachers to continually mark, I'm assuming, some sort of capability, like over time. Okay, beautiful.
Yeah.
So really, the students, this would be something set up at Barker. You know, here's a skill, but the students engage with that skill or the learning task using Seesaw. But when the teacher marks it, they've got Canvas open and they're having a look at the task on Seesaw.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's just for our preppies too. So yeah, all the feedback to the student is in Seesaw, and we get that parent interaction with it as well. They purely go into Canvas just to mark the rubric, which we then pull the data from for the academic transcript. For example, we have one of the outcomes we've made for literacy is reading. So they may assess that reading outcome 3 or 4 times over the semester. Then we programmatically look for that outcome in Canvas, pull it across to Engage, average it, and then that automatically creates whatever the reflective markers in their academic transcript that we do. At Barker, we have to Barkerize everything. Everybody else calls it continuous reporting, but of course we don't. So if I say progressive reporting, I mean continuous reporting. So yeah, it's our first. We tried it last year with Year 4. We got it running in a middle school, but Year 4 now this year we've gone K-6 with it. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey so far.
And one more question. You showed me that it was like there was this parent page, a Barker parent page, and you showed how parents would click on Canvas. And how does that? Do they have a Barker login to then allow them to?
Yeah, they do. Okay. Yeah, basically, the other reason we've done it through there is we run single sign-on across the board with Azure. So they log in with their parent credentials into the portal, which is their Barker credentials. When they hit the Canvas button, it picks those up and logs them straight in. So it's pushing them into the web version, I think, which I'm much more happy with. I think one of the biggest issues I come across with a parent app, if there was any sort of task in there, irrespective of whether it had to have something handed into, it would come up with missing. And we were constantly getting calls from parents going, what's going on? So yeah, I like the web version. I think it does a better job.
Jeez.
One thing, we'll go to Dennis. Just before you do, Paul, you're aware that, actually, Ruth, is it available yet, the straight average calculation for outcomes? No.
No, but I will talk about that.
Okay, yeah, I'm jumping the gun.
Data services
stealing your thunder,
as well, please.
What was that, Paul?
Data services too, as well, please.
Yeah, we'll talk about that as well.
Yeah, good, thanks. All
right, Dennis, over to you.
Yeah, look, most of my questions have already been answered by everybody else. But Paul, will you continue using Seesaw for the junior years? Yeah,
look, I will for the preppies, just for that, just that ease of use for the students. The really quick and easy way they can upload the content, and the wonderful thing that we can have going with the parents as well. It's super good for that. But I'm going to start pushing down the line a little bit more of getting more and more content into Canvas, and use it as that teaching tool up on when you've got it up on the whiteboard and you want to show a video, and collectively using that. The beauty of the cohort course is that we get the content right for the year and then we roll it over for the next year, and just use a timetable sync to pull the new sections and classes in, and it's working really, really nicely. So yeah, Seesaw's got its uses. It really does. The portfolio part of it is lovely. The parent connection to it is really good, but yeah, it kind of stops there.
Right. Yeah, but look, in regards to the homeroom, do you manually create those, or is your SIG doing that for you?
I manually created the homeroom, but only had to create 4. One for Year 3, one for Year 4, and everything else inside there, including that home course, is it's the home course, and that's done from a timetable sync.
Cool, no problem. Kylie, I know that you're from Kerry Grammar. We've chatted before. As an FYI, we've created our homerooms via the task sync as well. So we just created a call subject. So that seems to be working. We haven't gone down the elementary path. We're still trying to work out blueprints and all that kind of stuff. So we're still on that journey as well. Thank you.
Have a look at the cohorts.
Yeah.
but we'll sell it.
But you always
all day.
regret asking me to do this, Paul, don't you?
No, there's nothing wrong with it. Actually, I'm really, really glad, because it highlights that there's no one way, right? It depends on your situation, and that's why you have those options to be able to do it those different ways. All right, Ruth, I'll hand over to you for some producty stuff and try not to steal any more thunder.
No, that's fine. Steal away, Paul. Steal away. No one else but you. No, thank you so much for having me on the call. It's great to see and meet some of you that I haven't before, and a couple of familiar faces, which is fantastic. So thank you so much for having me. I guess I really wanted to just very quickly kick it off by explaining a little bit about what my role is here in APAC. And so, as you probably are aware, we have a product team who is obviously responsible for the development of our product, primarily based out of the United States, but we also have quite a big development team based in Budapest in Hungary. And so my role as the global product manager for APAC is essentially to be a conduit for the needs that we have here, and to make sure that as differences in education arise across the sectors, so HE, K-12, vocational, corporate, there's lots of different areas that we work with. Making sure that those nuances that are really specific to our part of the world, and even what something looks like and the needs in Singapore compared to Australia or New Zealand, are quite different. So really advocating for those things as part of our global strategy for how we develop and providing feedback on those things. So that's a little bit about my role. I used to be a CSM, so I know quite a bit about the shoes that Rio and Paul are in, and a lot about our customers here in region. So I would like to think that's put me in good stead to represent our region well. But I also very quickly just wanted to, before I jump into sharing my screen, wanted to just jump in on the parent app and just highlighting something. I know that that's been something that's been a real point of difficulty and a challenge across K-12 and K-6 or P-6 in terms of not being able to see feedback, which is so critical for us here. And so I just wanted to give an update, I suppose, around some work that's happening. I'm working directly with the product manager for mobile, who's responsible obviously for the student, teacher and parent apps, around why this is so significant, and doing some customer interviews with people from our part of the world to see what we can do to improve that. So it's definitely not ignored or not, it's definitely seen from our side of the fence. I just wanted to reiterate that here. Alrighty, I'll go ahead and share my screen. It's also fantastic to see a couple of people diving in and sharing about Canvas for elementary. I really wish it was called Canvas for primary. I don't know how many times I could go into that argument, but no, it's just fantastic to see some people jumping on board. I know there's been some caution in making that, that dive across, and I completely appreciate that, but it's just been great to hear about some of those instances and use cases of it so far. And that's all really valuable for me, so that when I go back and speak to product on my side, that I've got some of that information to share about how and why people are enjoying it, but still some of the challenges that you're experiencing. So thank you very much, Paul and Kylie, for sharing. Alrighty, hopefully you can see a screen here which has tear down barriers, build up learners and inspire innovators up the top. These three pillars really were our motivators across the COVID pandemic when it very first hit. So it seems like 10 years ago. It actually wasn't that long ago, but it definitely feels like it's been going on for a very long time. And I just wanted to quickly highlight some of the things that we focused on across the last 18 months and in 2021 in particular. Obviously, Canvas for elementary was a huge part of that for our youngest learners and what we're focusing on today, but a couple of other things, particularly around course templating and how we can, wherever we can, streamlining and making that content management process more efficient, as well as the Microsoft Teams integration, the student annotation assignments, which was called out as well, and the list sort of goes on. But I really wanted to highlight some of the work that's been done in the last 12 months, 18 months to enhance Canvas to the needs of our users. A number of these of which came from APAC, which is really exciting. And it just sort of shows that continuing journey as we continue to evolve the product. We've never seen education shift as quickly as it has, or the needs change as much as they have in the last little while. So we're really trying to to capture where we can play a bigger role, I suppose, in assisting people and institutions in elevating what they're doing with their students. And so I wanted to quickly just share our mission, just in case people haven't seen this before. I think sometimes people think lots of different things about what Instructure represents or what Canvas is really all about. And I just wanted to very quickly highlight this as something to keep in mind when you're thinking about Instructure and at the end of the day, what we're really trying to achieve. And it really comes around 3 key principles: the elevation of student success, amplifying the power of teaching. So all the time and effort we spend in teaching, how can we really amplify and make sure that that is really heard and understood and appreciated, and that you're getting the ROI on all of that effort, as well as the power of collaboration and inspiring everybody to learn together. So they're really the 3 key things that we focus on and think about at the end of the day for how we can change education and enhance what you guys are doing. I wanted to quickly just highlight a couple of key initiatives. This is by no means the full list of everything we're working on this year or anything like that, but we're also shifting to a slightly new strategy in how we think about product in 2022. And a lot of it is around less so which individual features are we building, and it's much more thinking about which problems are we looking to solve. What are the key challenges that we're seeing across the globe, not just in the US or in EMEA, but in our part of the world here and in Latin America and lots of different areas. How can we really listen to the key challenges that are the most impactful, and what are the things that we can do to solve those things in the smartest way, I suppose, to impact as many people around the globe as possible. And so a couple of things I wanted to call out on here. Obviously, there are a number of things that are generally pretty self-explanatory, but I did want to, I guess, highlight 2022 as being the year of the teacher. So this is something where historically, for those of you who've known Instructure or Canvas for quite a number of years, our philosophy has always been about designing and developing from a student-first perspective, and the teacher second and an administrator third. And we're really looking this year to have the year of the teacher being the primary focus. And obviously, a lot of what we do in the platform and the enhancements we make that are relevant to teachers, they do have a follow-on effect for students and making sure that their outcomes are better as well. But that is something that is top of mind for us in terms of how can we ensure that the things that we're building into the system, the capabilities that we're providing, that they're really there to nurture the relationship between the teacher and the student. And at no time do we want to get in the way of that. We're just really looking at how can we sit beneath that and nurture that engagement, because we think that that's where the real power comes in education and teaching and learning. And so a few things that have come to top of mind or focus areas for us this year, certainly peer review and self-assessment is something we're seeing across K-6, K-12, HE as being really significant, and the value of feedback from peers, not just from teachers or teaching staff, but that critical thinking that comes from needing to do self-assessment and understanding your areas of growth, and particularly for our younger learners, what does that look like from a holistic perspective, not just in your academic curriculum, but in your sort of your social and other areas of learning, and what does that look like, and how can Canvas play a bigger role in facilitating those engagements, and really understanding in the peer review space, how can we add in more capability as opposed to just the discussions, assignments, quizzes. How can we really start to diversify the types of opportunities people have to do assessment, to give feedback? What can those different avenues look like? In terms of groups improvements, there's lots of things we're looking to sort of do here around the administration, but also the functionality of groups and really the purpose that they are, what role do they play in the teaching and learning experience, particularly in K-12. They're very heavily utilised in our HE space, but we really think that there's a lot more that we can do in terms of the role that groups plays for K-12 or K-6. So that's something that we're looking at, and even how we interact that with something like peer review to make group peer reviews and things like that, as opposed to needing for it to be simply between students to students or students and teachers, but being able to bring in that group aspect to some of these intersecting features as well. Pace plans, or otherwise known as course pacing, is something that we're looking at as well in terms of how can we look at some templating or some removing some of the administration that currently exists around probably not so much for mainstream teaching and learning in the primary space, but maybe more around teacher PD. If people are enrolling in set courses, how can we standardize some of the workflows or the journey of that? For example, if you were to start on Monday, Paul, and then Wendy was to start on Wednesday, you would have a template about when your specific assignments were due or your content should be looked at based on when you started that program, so that either everyone finishes on the same day and maybe some people who enroll later have less time to do the content. Or maybe it's more around by the second week this is due, and then by the fourth week this is due, regardless of when you start. So removing some of that administrative burden that exists today. Canvas Data 2 was mentioned by you, Paul, so this is certainly something that continues to be a priority for us, as well as obviously investing in and looking at additional or new functionality to the system. We also want to deliver on our promises around enhanced capabilities that we've been discussing for a little while, and Canvas Data 2 definitely falls into that bucket. And so pleased to report that the dev on this has gone really, really well so far this year. Things are progressing as we had planned and expected, which is fantastic. And we will still be looking, as per the product manager's recent information in the community, we will still be looking for this to launch for customers in the second half of this year, which is fantastic. New quizzes and new discussions, both areas that have looked to be enhanced. They will continue to be improved on the new quizzes side. Syncing with blueprints, ongoing subsequent syncing for blueprints is something that will be delivered this year, as well as the rich content editor. It's something else that's a key priority for us. Lots of people leveraging RCE components as part of their question design. So a number of things that we're doing in the new quizzes space. But obviously, as we move towards that 2024 timeline, it's really making sure that customers are equipped with the information to understand when we're doing what, so that you can make the decision about when is the right time to transition to that tool if you haven't done that already. So that's something that will continue to be front of mind for us across multiple product teams. It's not specific to our assessment team. And then in terms of new discussions, there's obviously a lot of enhancements for those of you who might have seen in the community or might have already chosen to switch over. We do have an enhanced version of discussions, which does have some additional functionality, things like at mentioning, so that you can call out responses that you should be looking at or you should be sort of thinking about, as well as reporting and anonymity, and we also have checkpoints and moderation on the roadmap for discussions as well. So some different functionalities that we're looking to bring into that discussion space. Happy to talk about any more of these if they're things that people would like to hear more about. Outcomes and competencies. Paul, you made mention of outcomes in your discussion today as well. We're really thinking about, from an outcome perspective, how can we increase adoption of outcomes, mainly because we think they're so critical in the teaching and learning journey, and making sure that we are aligning the curriculum that we're delivering to whatever standards make sense for our institutions, and making that easier from an administration perspective initially, and then additional things we're thinking of after that. But a couple of things just to give you a bit of insight that we're looking at here. First of all, as Paul mentioned, adding an additional calculation method of true average. So at the moment, there's highest score, most recent number of times, or decaying average, but decaying average isn't necessarily applicable to all of our customers and regions here. And so a request from APAC specifically, which has been developed and is in the sort of final stages of Q&A, is to be able to have a true average calculation method. So if an outcome is assessed in 3 different areas, you are able to report on that as the actual average across those 3, as opposed to a decaying average, which is the closest that you can do today. A couple of other things for outcomes, we're looking to add the ability to tag content with outcomes as opposed to just assessment. So not just through rubrics, but being able to tag content like pages and discussions and those sorts of things where they do have alignment to learning outcomes, to have that capability within the system, as well as the administration side. So being able to actually understand and see and organize the alignments of where outcomes exist within any given course from the outcomes area in the course, instead of needing to build all of those in the rubrics from within each individual assignment. So just being able to sort of elevate that and do it across your whole course in the one area. And then looking at, actually very quickly on outcomes, because I think this might be applicable to a couple of people, bringing in the capability for outcome data and outcome results to pass back to the Learning Mastery Gradebook from new quizzes. So that's something else that the quizzes team and outcomes team are tackling in the first half of this year. And the final one here, Canvas Student Eportfolios, which I did want to actually just provide a couple of screenshots on today. This is actually a really important initiative that our team is working on as we start to flesh out some of the core components that we see critical from Eportfolio, which some of you might be aware of, was an acquisition we made a couple of years ago now, and how we can actually flesh that out and bring that into the LMS natively, replacing the existing Eportfolio solution that exists in Canvas today. And so this would be something that it is something that our teams are working on at the moment, and we look to deliver towards the end of this year. So we'd be ready, we'd be targeting for our schools here in APAC to be able to leverage this either very late in term 4 or for the 2023 school year, essentially being able to bring in artifacts from different courses and showcase those in a portfolio within Canvas. So with all the security and privacy functionalities that exist within the LMS, being able to piggyback off those as you explore a portfolio solution native within Canvas. So I might just jump in and show a couple of screenshots for this. So this, as you can see, this is just a very early prototype. So please don't quote me on this in 9 months' time if it looks slightly different. But the idea is still from within the user menu. So like it exists today, the existing Canvas ePortfolio legacy option is navigated to from here. But it looks quite different. It's quite a dated interface in terms of what you're able to do. It's much more of a wiki style in terms of how you go about creating these. Whereas this is much more authentically a portfolio of your work or assessment or whatever projects it is that you might be collecting those pieces of work to showcase through. So for any given user, they are able to import artifacts that they have done through their Canvas courses and share that information or gain recognition via different badging sorts of tools, that sort of thing. So if we have a look, you can see this is where you're able to, some of the interface for actually selecting the artifacts that exist within your course enrollments and bringing those into your portfolio, as well as being able to share that, similar, I suppose, to how you do today with the existing ePortfolio solution through public and private options for sharing. But then from an administration perspective, which is something the existing tool today does not support as nicely as this certainly will, is the ability to really manage users and permissions centrally for administrators within Canvas instead of needing to manage that externally or not really have too much control of that. Deciding who is an admin, who has links that are private or public, etc., and understanding being able to access those portfolios from a centralized place for admins. Are there any questions? Oh, yeah, go for it.
I was just going to ask, with the ePortfolios, are you able to create templates for the students when they, so let's just say they're going to add to their portfolio, is there some sort of template page? Like we use this assessment capable learner structure where students say, where am I going with my learning? Where am I at? What are my next steps? That familiar, I guess, questions we want our students to be able to answer and respond to. Like, can you set things like that up? You can tell I'm still a bit of a noob with Canvas, but is that a possibility?
That's totally fine. So within the portfolio tool or the student ePortfolios that is being that's being built out, that wouldn't be something that is a sort of standard capability or functionality out of the gate, but that's certainly feedback that I'm happy to pass back to the team if that's something that would be valuable, particularly for younger learners. I can understand the use case, but happy to discuss that further. But no, not something that it would do natively. The idea is that it is a space where learners sort of are able to design their portfolio of work.
And with the portfolio, once they finish their schooling, what typically happens with the data and like the portfolio? Like, is the student, what like, is there the ability for students to take the content with them or, yep.
Yeah, there absolutely will be. And that's been one of the draw cards for Portfolio, and why people have really loved the concept of Portfolio is that idea of students having lifelong access to that. So yes, there certainly would be capability for that. It's not something I have a screenshot of today, but it's definitely part of the thinking for the discovery of that product team looking to build that out.
Cool. Thank you.
Oh, great questions. Thank you. Any other questions about ePortfolios or portfolios of work in general before we... I'm also very conscious of time, actually. I might not have any time left, but that's okay.
Yeah, we if there's no other questions, we have kind of hit the hour. I'm happy to stay back a little bit longer if other people are happy to have a quick chat. We did have a couple of other things on the agenda, or we can wrap up depending on people's commitments and things like that. I think, Ruth, we probably do need to let you go. But if
I'm happy to hang around if there are questions, particularly on, I know I sort of just whipped through a lot of that. So I want to make sure that if there's anyone with any questions, that there's certainly opportunity to ask those.
That's some great changes coming. I think more of a comment than a question. It's exciting, some of that stuff. Eportfolios are a wonderful thing to look at, and you can tell we're really excited about the data services too, because we're looking at being able to access that data to support what we're doing with progressive reporting a lot easier, and start to build our own tools to pull the data out and get it in some sort of usable interface. So yeah, it's really exciting that it's happening. Good on you.
Paul, earlier you mentioned Canva. Are you aware that we've got a icon and button maker coming to Canvas?
Oh no!
That was the other slide I had, but I was like, no, I'm out of time. I'll stop sharing. But in the April release, jump in and have a look at the April release. It's just called an icon maker now to simplify things. And it's not designed to be, here's a replacement for Canva, but it is designed to be, not everyone can afford something like a Canva, and also just for the really quick opportunities and snippets to just go, hey, I want to make a logo, I want to make a button, or I want to make a page divider that's this particular thing, or whatever it is. Just being able to do that from within the rich content editor, and just build a very simple thing. You can upload images if you want to make custom icons and banners, buttons, things like that. But it's just a really simple way. So there aren't 1,000 whiz-bang options in terms of the design of what you do, but there are some certainly basic editing functionalities that will meet 95% of the use cases, just to really provide something like this that really Canvas hasn't been able to provide before. So showing something like that within the native rich content editor options.
Yeah, I had a quick look at it. It does look good. Oh, he's muted.
Sorry.
I'm not muted. So go.
Paul, quick question. What do you use Canva for? Like, is it mainly for just design work?
I was using Canva to build a lot of the content for my courses, but they've now opened it up, so it's free for education now. You get the access to the entire professional suite of elements and things, and they've got some great design tools in there, and you're able, with the LTI integration into Canvas, you're able to go and set a template in Canva. The kids go in and create the content in it, add images that are all free to use and all that sort of thing. I'm trying to think of the word, sorry. Import it straight in, and then they can submit directly back to a task, all from within your course. It's it's pretty exciting. And I think the fact that
I was going to say, it saves them time from, when you set kids a task to make a poster, they spend probably 90% of the time, like choosing the colors and the font, and you can sort of have that really locked down as to just change this, put this, and focus on the content. That's what we really want you to do.
It sounds like a
cool.
very...
I'll actually pass that on to our teachers.
Awesome.
How many IT people are here?
IT-ish.
Like guys from your IT department. I'm always interested in who actually is involved in this type of stuff. No one? That's okay. Now, another question. In regards to like a community, is there something where on the Canvas website where we can go to that's specifically for primary for Australia? Like, like a forum where we can all kind of like chat and whatnot and share ideas? Because I think that'd be great if there wasn't.
Yeah, Rio, are you thinking what I'm thinking? You're muted.
I'm mute.
Tell me what you're thinking first before I say yes.
Okay. Are you thinking of the priority services space or another group space?
I was thinking the Canvas for elementary space. I'm just trying to look for it.
Yeah, I'm not
In
sure if
the product user group.
Yeah.
Yeah, a couple of things. It won't be there once it's sort of been rolled out and it's kind of had the bulk of the development work done. It's not considered a sort of feature preview anymore. So it's something where I wouldn't suggest that sort of space. A, it may not exist anymore, and B, it will be taken away at some point. So I would recommend moving that to somewhere that would exist in an ongoing way.
Yep. So, I mean, part of it is having the user groups like this, where we can catch up and discuss things like that. But yeah, that would have been a place where we could have gone. But as Ruth says, once it gets to the point that it's fully fleshed out, and to that point that it's no longer a feature preview group, but that was specific for Canvas for elementary.
So is there a mechanism moving forward that we could potentially use, or not really? I just think it might be useful for, people that are starting out, people that are, quite experienced in it, and we can flick questions up there. And like, I know we can engage with you guys, but I guess, when you're talking to other primary schools who are in the same boat, same scenario, same timetables, et cetera, it'd be good just to bounce ideas off, other people.
Can I add to that, Dennis? So we use Canvas Elementary for our 5 to 6s, and but we also use Google Workspace as well. So I'd love to connect with schools who have their students using the Chrome browser and Google Drive, and just kind of understand what is the best workflow for students, and staff alike, with the whole conceptual overview of, here is the work that students will be engaging with. Yep, there's some blended elements, but the way that students can resubmit work, is it typically Google Docs? And if it's Docs, can I see all the docs and be able to check in? And what's the best method for all the feedback? Should I ditch the docs and, stick to, I'm not sure. I'd love to, stand on the shoulder of some giants out there who've kind of done all this thinking and work.
Yeah, I've noticed that the more and more people I get in contact with, the more that I'm finding out we've got similar systems in the back end. As an example, Kerry. And I guess when you reach out more, then you'll find other schools that are like, oh, we use Canvas and we use this student information system as well. And that's when you can go, okay, let's work together.
As much as it pains me to say this, being a staunch Apple person, OneNote's done some pretty amazing things, and using the three together in combination with Canvas, Teams, and OneNote, we're really happy with it. It's taking us at the moment.
You can be certified in Microsoft as well, Paul, if you want to.
Well, I don't know if I could do that. That's taking it a step too far.
Yeah, I mean, does anyone have any ideas for some sort of forum that would work well for that sort of just communication and collaboration?
It almost needs to be something as simple as like a Facebook group, like that sort of, quick chat connection. And I'm not saying use Facebook, but that type of platform where...
My kids mention this Instagram, WhatsApp thing all the time.
Now's your time. You could get on board.
I'm really good on email.
I do
I
think
could potentially bang a team together, Microsoft Teams, sorry, Paul, and invite you as guests. So that
I do think there's a lot of forums on Canvas, and it can be really, I find it really overwhelming to know where to go to connect. And so if we're finding that challenging, imagine even then for our teachers to connect to a community as well. So I think it would be a nice thing to explore that sits alongside this user group. And I think with something like that, we might get some more reach with the user group as well, get more people to hop into the user group when we have them.
Yeah.
Looks like Paul and Ria have got a bit of work ahead of them.
Yeah. We'll mash some brain cells together and see what we come up with.
There's not a lot, to be honest. So it's not a lot of details to be honest.
Yeah. Anyway, guys, I got to go. But thanks everyone for sharing. And yeah, we'll chat soon.
Thanks, Dennis.
Thanks, Dennis. Yeah, I am cognizant of the time, but thanks so much everyone for coming. Do we want to have a quick discussion about how you're sharing content and things like that, or should we save that for the next user group?
Yeah, I've got to go. Sorry, Paul. So yeah,
I think it's about time. That's the gut feeling I'm getting. All right, so thanks everyone. We'll save that for next time. It's been really, really great. Thanks so much for participating and asking questions, because I could see from people's responses that there are a lot of questions that were asked where people were really appreciative of the questions and the answers that were given. And we're grateful for Ruth coming. She had to jump off, but thanks Ruth for when you watch this recording. And yeah, we'll see you again soon. And one other thing. If you haven't had a chance, feel free to fill in. We have like a really short survey that we sent with the email to register. If you haven't had a chance to fill that in, feel free to do that. And also, if we got to see a couple of homepages and things from Paul and Kylie and stuff like that, but feel free to send through any homepages that you think would be helpful for people to see, just different layouts of homepages that we could share. And if you do that, and by virtue of attending today, yeah, you'll be in the running to get some Canvas merch. So we'll give you another 24 hours or so to do that, because it's the end of the business day. So thank you, and we'll catch you all again soon.
Last one, Paul. CSAT surveys are out at the moment. And yeah, if you haven't filled one out, we politely ask you to kind of fill it out, because we want feedback, we want to improve, and hear your honest responses so that we can improve or identify areas that potentially can be improved. So yeah, that was my final thing.
Okay.
And mine.
All right, thanks everyone.
Thanks
We'll
all.
catch you all again
Thanks,
soon.
Paul.
Thanks
Bye.
all. Bye.
Good to see you.